mostly once we kind of get going, you'll kind of like completely lose track of the fact that there's cameras, there's microphones and all the rest of it. What's kind of been happening recently actually is we get this weird chat going on that's completely got nothing to do with anything.
Okay. Shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit.
Nice.
And then, somehow I'm like, oh crap, we're actually recording now. We should probably start chatting about whatever it is that we came here to chat about. But yeah, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
So for the context of the audience, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? Who you are?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Ryan Anderson. I'm the owner of Transcend Fitness, which is an online body transformation coaching company. And I help men in particular get into, I would class amazing shape. So photo shoot condition, right. Amazing shape, if I do say so myself. And help them get a hold of their health more. And one thing that we do differently, or one thing that I kind of highlight, is we use the transformation journey to help them level up in multiple areas. So, for example, following through on what they do helps them improve their confidence, from what I gather anyway. Losing body fat helps them improve their health, and getting in photo shoot condition pushes them to a level, pushes them outside of their comfort zone, so they are just, feel a bit more confident about themselves and what they can do. So we've been running that for 2 years. I've been a coach / PT for the last 10 or 11 years now.
Wow.
I know.
That long, huh?
That long, man.
Man, I only you were 23 when I met you.
Was it 23?
I think you were 23.
I'm 31.
You're 31 now.
Yeah, man.
Oh my God.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
We're not going to talk about age. Please continue.
Yeah. So, been a coach for 10, 11 years now. I started training myself when I was 15 because of my brothers. I was an insecure young guy, so I wanted to get muscles to feel a bit better about myself, go to the gym, etc. That's when I kind of got into the fitness industry and my own fitness journey. And then once I started getting into it, I found that like all of this fitness stuff and improving my physique was the only really thing I was ever interested in. I didn't like school that much, really. I was a little shit in school, right? So I'd probably be okay in some classes, but I never really cared about my education in school that much. Only like my mum kind of forced me into it. But anyway, was really interested in fitness. I still didn't know what I wanted to do by the time I left university. So I wanted to become a PT because I spent most of my time in the gym. I was genuinely interested in it, and I was just helping my friends with their fitness journeys as well. So turned it into a career and started PTing. And 10, 11 years later, we are still here going strong.
That's really interesting, actually. As you were talking there, it got me thinking about something I haven't actually thought about before. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like these conversations, because they do allow me to, put more pieces of the puzzle together. And listening to you there, it now makes me think about another topic of conversation that I'm going to try and understand a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And probably start with you is, like the people that actually become personal trainers and why they become personal trainers, and what type of person tends to go towards that profession. And I have thought about this a few times before, not necessarily like in massively positive ways, mind you.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure we've all got really strong opinions on the industries that we work in and the people that we work with. Or like even with personal trainers, we don't necessarily work with people as teams, but you look across the internet or like even sometimes you'll go to a gym and you might just be like a bit like, oh, not really too sure. I think that person is the best person at this job. But, you know, there are probably some very noble reasons as to why people get into personal training.
Yep.
And you've obviously done something, which is you worked as a personal trainer.
Yep.
And then you transitioned into a full-time online coach, right?
Yes.
So what was the thinking there? Like, why stop working with people one-to-one?
Good question. And I would say that my main reason for going from one-to-one in person to online was mainly based around the fact that I would have a bit more freedom and flexibility whilst being able to keep the standard of service high. I knew because when I transitioned from in person to online, I wasn't going straight into self-employment. I was working for another company, an online company. So I looked at them and I looked at their results and I looked at how they work, and I really bought into what they did and how they did things, which kind of made me think, okay, I can still help people. Looking by the results that they get and how they work with their clients, I can still achieve a high level result with my client base, but I'd have the freedom to work on my own time and my own location. And this was after COVID as well. So after that, it got me thinking, because I was still working, doing PT training during COVID, but it was one-to-one PT sessions online through Zoom, sorry. And it was still working, like obviously on the hour, kind of unsociable hours, which made me think, okay, I probably need to start thinking about a different avenue if I want to have a lifestyle that I wanted, whilst obviously helping the people the way I wanted to help them as well.
When you say lifestyle that you wanted, what does that... What? Do you have the lifestyle that you wanted? The idea that you had in your mind at the time?
Yep.
Would you say that that's the lifestyle that you're living right now?
No.
Oh,
No.
wow, okay.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think it's better than how it was, but I realized that when you're self-employed and you're still working online, you might have a bit more flexibility, but you're still spending plenty of hours working obviously on the business, helping your clients. You need to be much more diligent with your own time because you have a lot more freedom. And you spend, it was a big transition because you've gone from being around people all day, which I absolutely love about one-to-one PT, and I love seeing people. I'm also I really enjoy training people as well. When I was doing one-to-one PT, I really like the idea that, okay, your mechanics aren't working that way. You need to adjust this, and this is how you push to failure, because that's what a lot of people want from when they go into a body transformation journey. But people market an online business as a lot more flexibility than it actually is. So initially I thought there would be a bit more flexibility than I have now. But I think when you're running your own business and when you're dealing with a lot of clients, it is less flexibility than I originally thought. So no, it's not exactly how I thought it was. But
well, that's actually really interesting. I think, again, I don't know if we mentioned this already, but so as how me and you know each other is that at some point in time, I was running a online business and you had hired me, right? I think you messaged me on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
And, we arranged, and I must have probably arranged a phone call with you at the time because I remember how I used to do things.
Yeah.
We must have chatted. Now, you are an online client of mine, right? Not a one-to-one personal training client. How many times did you see me in person?
2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times, right? And I remember running that online business. And it was definitely not, it was flexible, but there was so much more work in an online business. If you, depending on how much you care about the outcome of the work, right? You could just sit there and be like, great, people are paying me. I'm just going to send them a plan. If they check in, they check in. If they don't check in, then they don't. And then, that it's on them that they didn't succeed, right?
Yeah.
Or you're the other type of person where like you're highly anxious. And you're stressing over every little detail.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm not really sure that was 20 kilos that you just did there. So I'm going to now come all the way down to wherever the hell you are to watch you do that exercise and be like, see? And so I did, because I was like wanting to make sure that the plans that I wrote were being followed well. I wanted to go down and I wanted to see that the exercises were being done to the level of understanding of the exercises that I had at the time. I wanted to maintain an open communication with people because I knew that I was dealing with people, and I knew that this wasn't just we don't just follow plans. That's not really what anybody hires a coach for. They can get a plan anywhere. What they hire a coach for is human support. And what was really interesting, I think I would have had a Facebook group at the time, which you may or may not have been part of. And I put a poll in there, and there was like all of you guys in there, and I must have put like, what bits of this service do you value the most? And I really wanted everybody to click the training program option, right? Everybody went, like a large majority picked, I think, support from the coach. And I was like, damn. Because that's the most demanding part.
Yeah.
So is that kind of where you're experiencing that sort of not so flexible situation?
Yes. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. I think when you do really want the result from the client, you kind of understand that change is hard for a lot of people, no matter how much they want the result, or they might say they want the result. Change is hard, and there's a lot of points in the day where they could potentially go wrong. And I find as well, my support for them and me being on WhatsApp a message away is probably one of the most valuable things I could provide for them. So yeah, like you said, when it comes to all different aspects, I've obviously got them on the app, so I know what they're eating with MyFitnessPal, what they're not eating, what they shouldn't be eating, whatever. When they get their training sessions in, what they do down from the sets to the reps and all of these kind of things. So there's so many areas that you can monitor. And when you want to make sure that they're getting the best result, it's not a case of here's a plan, follow it, chat to you in a week. It's kind of like, okay, ongoing support. So yeah, and when you're dealing with like a large client base, it's definitely time consuming. Yeah,
I think that's probably the most insightful thing for anybody who's like a client or looking to work with a coach would probably be best understanding is the actual details of a training program, of a nutrition plan, aren't quite as significant as the relationship that you have with the coach, and also the relationship that you have with yourself. So what I've kind of learned over time, who kind of makes like really easy to work with clients and who doesn't. And I don't try and talk about this too much because it's obviously a bit cheeky of me to filter people through, but I have done, and I've working with so many people has allowed me to get a better idea of like, I could help you, but it's going to be more headache than it's worth. And I'm not going to tell you that, but I'll kind of like shift you on to somebody who's not quite realized that yet and is still like super excited and motivated to help everybody that they can.
Yes.
And I'm definitely more selective at this stage, almost to the point of I actually haven't taken on a new client in about 18 months. It's like I was saying to you before we started recording, I'm like a little bit more removed now. I don't do as much actively as a trainer or a coach, even though I do still work with quite a lot of clients, but I'm no longer like pushing that side of things. But yeah, the value of actually having another person in your corner, having another person that is kind of like cares about what happens to you in that regard, knowing that you've got accountability, these are the things that end up creating the outcome. And I know this because, probably the training program that I wrote for you 7 years ago or whatever, if I was to look at it now, I'd probably like have my head in my hands, like, oh my God, no. Who wrote this garbage, right? But at the time, I probably thought it was like, yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. And I've written like loads of programs, trained loads of people, and, different time periods. They all got outcomes. They all got results. Could I have done it better than I did it then? Yes, 100%. And the only thing that was consistent through all of that was it was me there working with another person and another person there working with me. And it was the relationship between the two people that created the outcome, because that person was more willing to take actions towards creating the outcome because somebody else was there with them. So that online coaching, you get to kind of just be on a beach somewhere chilling out. Not quite.
No.
All you've done is add a whole bunch of extra people into your life that are that you're gonna have to care about and that you're gonna have to look after. So you were working as a PT. You actually worked for a company that's probably quite well known, even amongst people outside of the industry, right? Arguably the largest personal training company in the world, which is Ultimate Performance. Yeah. I've never worked for Ultimate Performance, and I only know them from the outside.
Okay.
I don't know how much you can speak about all of that kind of stuff, but what was your sort of experience of Ultimate Performance?
I would say overall, if I had to sum up, it was a great experience. I went into the company because of, obviously, like you said, it's very well known for the before and afters, which it produces. At that point in time in my career, I was looking to help achieve these results with people to that standard. And generally, I thought it was, like I said, a really good experience. It was my first time being part of, because before that, I was a self-employed coach in Horsham, which is like a little gym outside in the country, to working in central London and working with like high performing people, I would say. The clientele was CEOs and managers of like high level jobs earning big income. They charge a pretty penny to get personal training sessions there. So everybody needed to be held to higher standards. So it was a great experience because it really like showed me how I need to be performing in order to work with those type of clients and to achieve those results. But whilst I did learn a lot, what I found out was it wasn't exactly everything I'd hoped it to be, because whilst it was great and it done great before and afters, the biggest downfall was the fact that it wasn't really something that was focusing on helping clients maintain results, unless they was there just continuously and just staying with Ultimate Performance indefinitely. And what I mean by that is that they'd obviously sell package to get a before and after, and then it was up to the client to obviously it's out the door. So it was great for the first initial phase, but I found out, and the reason why I left was because it wasn't really focusing on helping the clients get their result and maintain somewhat that.
So they were kind of missing that aftercare.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they, in their marketing or in their mission or whatever, they kind of state the fact that we help clients transform their body for the rest of their life or maintain their health. So like they're not exactly doing anything, they're not delivering on promises which they're making. But especially when I went in, I just didn't really take that into account. I saw the before and afters and I was like, oh wow, they're really doing good things with all their clients. Like their clients look amazing now. And that's the initial thing that I thought, and that's the thing that I was attracted to and wanted to do. But whilst it still is a great company, I'm sure many people have started their fitness journey and maintained some level of progress. I found out that the fact that they didn't focus on the long-term journey of the client meant that it probably wasn't the right place for me to continue my career. But yeah, like it pushed me to places that I never thought I would go. So I have that to thank Ultimate Performance for. And obviously the amount of knowledge the coaches have when it comes to nutrition, training, and everything else to do with getting from A to B. It's like second to none, I would say, because it had so much to educate me with.
How is your service different now?
There was a trigger point. There was a point where I realized, okay, this isn't for me. And what happened was one of my clients who I helped lose 20 kilos, done amazing. Obviously 20 kilos off of somebody, they're going to look massively different. And that was fantastic. But he reached the end of his package. So he left. And then I didn't see him till a year later. And when I saw him, he was 25 kilos heavier.
Right.
And that's the point where I was like, okay, now I realize that it's not just about the before and after. It's about a whole journey to help them understand how to maintain, at least help them understand how to maintain their results, because obviously change is hard and a lot goes into maintaining a result like that. So what's changed now for me was working for that other online coaching company and learning about how we can help our clients further when it comes to maintaining their results. And what I realize now is that it's a lot fucking harder to help people change their behavior for long term and maintain their weight loss. So the longer I'm in this industry and the longer I coach, the more I realize that it's a difficult journey. But how I help my clients now, and what I would say is different, is I am making my clients much more aware of the journey ahead. So instead of selling them the dream, like this is the before, like this is how you transform your body forever, there is a lot more education into the process about, okay, this is probably what's going to need to change. This is the process to get from A to B to C. This is probably how your lifestyle is going to look differently in order to maintain your results. And I take them through a process which helps them go from A to B, like the dieting phase, and help them reverse out of their diet and try and get them into a place where they are eating a lot more food. They're a lot less food focused. They are in somewhat control of their hunger. They have they have a healthy lifestyle that's built around regular activity, training, and having a balance with food, which I believe is obviously helps massively when it comes to helping them stay in shape. There's still a lot to do, and I try to make them understand as much as they need to know in order to stay relatively lean. I don't think anybody has got it in them to have a six-pack for the rest of their lives, and I don't promote that. But if you want to get to a place where you're at least satisfied and happy with how you look, you can get to that, but it's going to take a good amount of effort, and I try and educate them on that and take them through that journey.
Okay. Well, that's you've really kind of had to delve a lot more into, like, past the 12 weeks, what happens, right?
Yes.
So we've just talked about Ultimate Performance.
Mm-hmm.
You also had another experience which we've kind of briefly touched on already. And I suppose I'd be curious to know, because I mentioned earlier that I've gone through several stages myself, and you're from a different version of me, right? That I don't even really remember who that was, what would have happened. But maybe you would have some recollection of what I was asking you to do, what I was asking you to do in terms of nutrition, what I was asking you to do in terms of training, even what I might have even just been saying to you about things in general. And then if we talk about aftercare, did you even receive any?
From yourself?
From me, yeah.
After I finished with you?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't know. I don't think so.
So for the context of the audience, Ryan worked with me for a bodybuilding show.
Yes.
So our job was to basically get to really low body fat and step up on stage. It was the men's physique category. I think it was your first show at the time. Did you do another one after that, or did you it was one and done?
I think it was one and done. No, you know what it was? I had two planned. Do you remember what happened? You don't remember?
I remember the day. I remember you got shoved into, we were planning for the junior category and you got shoved into the adults and like all the adults were like twice your size.
Yeah, that like, I was somebody who had very little confidence. I was like, I was in a very fragile place then anyway. And then that I think was very difficult for me. Because obviously like you said, but that's what happened. And yeah, after that, I'm sure you would have directed me, and obviously we had a show planned for the next week. We actually did have a show planned for the next week, but I decided not to go through with it. Again, looking back, I just wasn't in the,
You were a bit disheartened by that whole experience.
Yes.
I think, I don't really remember, like what used to happen is because people kept working with me for such a long period of time. I never worked with anybody for like short periods of time, and even our time together would have been longer than 12 weeks.
Yes.
So I think at the time, and probably even now, I've always tried to kind of lace in insight throughout that time and talk about afterwards, even during. So it's like, look, this is what's potentially going to happen. Whether I did anything for you afterwards, I don't recall. And in all honesty, I don't imagine that I did. I think there would have been this natural parting of, I'm going to stop now.
Yeah.
And then I probably would have been like, all right, great. Well, like, let me know if you want to do that again, and then we'll pick up.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have left you with some advice, but nothing much more than that. Is there anything, like, whether it's training, whether it's nutrition, whether it's anything that we did that you later looked back on and thought, that guy was wrong about that? As you developed as a trainer and a coach yourself, as your knowledge base expanded, as your experience was gained, did you kind of be like, yeah, I wouldn't have done it like that, or I wouldn't have programmed the exercises that way, or I wouldn't have done nutrition that way, or I wouldn't have handled the situation in that way? I suppose that's where I knowing where you went wrong is really useful. And it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty certain I would have been wrong about a million things.
No, I wouldn't say there was many. I would say that the majority of things, when I look back on our coaching experience, and now I've matured as a person, and obviously I know more about the fitness industry, I look back at some of the things you did, and I was like, that's why you did that. Because at the time, obviously I was very early in my fitness pursuit to compete or whatever. I was very much looking up to the influencers and seeing what they were doing, and going on bodybuilding.com and looking at Jeremy Bundia's FST7. And that's what I was obsessed with, and like having 4 meals of rice and chicken after every hour after my training session to boost my insulin. And that's the stuff that I was really buying into. But I remember looking at some of the ways that you did things and some of the things that you mentioned, especially when you was working with other coaches, and you're like, and how I think you put the person first, and I can remember that from some things you said about your coaches. Whereas I was like, no, results, push them hard. Like that's kind of mentality I was in. So when I look back, I think of your coaching and I think, oh, that's why I did it. Oh, that makes sense. Which at the time I didn't appreciate.
That's interesting. That probably wouldn't have changed. Yeah, like I think it's more of a natural thing. I'm very person first.
Yes.
Body second. Mainly because I'm like actually interacting with the person. And it's kind of like, well, it's like interacting with anybody, right? Like you're generally trying to make that interaction go fairly well. And you wouldn't go out of your way to be offensive to somebody or to make them feel bad or to, ruin their day in any particular way. And we can inadvertently, because we're so committed to the result, treat the person badly. Because, no, you're not listening. And I like the fact that this show is called Confessions of a Personal Trainer, because it's probably the time for me to like really be super honest. Not that I've ever hidden this, but it's just no one's ever really had the chance to hear me talk about. I have a long history of bullying people. And
as a coach, sorry?
As a person. And that naturally drifts into your coaching as well, right? Now, when I've made that sound a bit more extreme than what it is. Obviously, I'm not. At this stage, I'm better at accepting the fact that I'm actually not that bad in person. But yeah, are there times where, I've used my words to push people in a way that wasn't very pleasant for them? Yeah, sure. Being mindful, I'm now way more mindful about how I deal with people. And I still end up getting a little bit frustrated when I'm dealing with people. And I always feel bad about that afterwards. Whereas before I didn't. Before it was just like, I don't care. We're doing this, we're getting this done, we're getting the result, right? And given enough time, you kind of get to see people do develop this weird like fear of you. Not fear of me, maybe, but fear of what I would say. So they hide things from you, they tread on eggshells around you a little bit because you've been so highly reactive. I might not have been like that with you so much, but I know I've definitely been like that with a number of people that I've worked with. Some people maybe triggered me a little bit more than others. And it's not something I'm massively proud of. And I think the person always took it in a really good way because it was still me, trying to get things right. I was still pushing for the result. It wasn't like, there wasn't any malice to it. I wasn't just trying to be mean for the sake of being mean, but I was being me. But yeah, I'm always been very aware of the person in front of me. And in all honesty, what would I have been doing at the time? At the time, I probably would have been following somebody called Mike Israetel, right? Who's like a professor at university and does loads of content now as well. And I've actually met Mike, and he's just this really, really highly charismatic, funny guy, incredibly smart, knows a lot more about training and nutrition than I probably ever will. But I was following his advice and probably a bunch of other people's advice quite blindly in retrospect. And so I write the programs I was writing for you and everybody else at the time were based on this sort of minimum effective dose, maximum recoverable volume, and it was all based on how many sets we would do, and the progressions would be based on increasing sets. And then there was also like a lot of powerlifting influence in there as well. So even though I was training people for bodybuilding shows, like a lot of the programs were centered around barbell back squats, deadlifts, and bench presses and stuff like that, which aren't necessarily bad exercises, but they're not necessarily sport specific when you're training bodybuilding competitors. So if the person really likes it, fair play, but forcing them to do it, like just because it's the way you program things, maybe wasn't the best approach at the time. I don't remember exactly what I would have been asking you to do, but 100% guarantee there would have been some compound exercises in there.
Yeah.
And it would have all been about like getting really strong at those. And then maybe some bicep curls. Whereas, and I guess in the last few years, I got a little bit more into biomechanics, or the term biomechanics as it is on social media. And just like, learning more about like the physics behind exercise. That kind of shifted how I understood people training for muscle building in a much smarter way. And I also realized it wasn't something that was easy to translate to people because it was almost very left field. People don't understand exercises based on the physics of the exercise. So you're still sort of caught in this thing like, what's the number one best exercise for? What's the most scientifically backed, blah, 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 blah. And it really, what you learned was it wasn't really about the exercises. It was more to do with the movement and the resistance and its relationship to gravity, basically. So that wouldn't have been as present in the training programs I would have written then. As far as the nutrition goes, I avoid now asking people to track on MyFitnessPal. And that kind of became just like every single person, sign up to MyFitnessPal. We're going to start tracking your food because it works. Yeah, 100% guaranteed. If you start tracking your food and managing your calories, you are going to lose or gain weight, depending on which one you want. It just like it works 100% of the time. It just comes with other costs. And whether it's the best approach for a person and to develop a healthy relationship with how they eat is kind of where you kind of get into a little bit of like, maybe this isn't the best thing for me to be doing. And I don't do transformations. In fact, I kind of avoid nutrition altogether nowadays.
Oh, really? Wow, yeah, okay.
I can't always because sometimes people ask me about it, but mostly I just focus on people getting stronger at lifts that they enjoy, do a little bit of handstand stuff and playful things. And I suppose I'm a little bit more in the longevity game where it's like, okay, we're training now so that when you're 80, you don't need any assistance from anybody else. You can still walk up and down the stairs and sit up and sit down and grab things and jump on a plane and hike a mountain if you really want to. And that's the kind of goal that I end up pushing for the people I work with.
Nice.
Which is why I don't necessarily train bodybuilders anymore. Although there is an exception to that, but I'm sure that will be revealed a little bit later on this year. Anyway, use this. Are you at this stage, do you think there's anything you need to change?
Yes, I do think. I think I'm always thinking about evolving and adapting. When I first got into my coaching career, I thought I could transform anybody. I thought as long as somebody came to me and they were willing to pay me and they made the decision to get a six-pack, it was up to me to motivate them. It was up to me to help explain to them the journey, the difficulties they're going through, help them understand their problems more from a practical to mental standpoint. I thought I am responsible for changing anybody who comes into me. And now, as I go further into my career, I'm slowly understanding that for the services that I provide and the goals which I'm trying to help people achieve, I am only able to work with certain people. And I think that I'm trying to adapt my service to make sure that I'm helping one specific person to achieve a particular outcome. And I am constantly adapting things to hopefully get a certain person to get into their shape of their life and maintain their progress, or maintain some level of progress for the rest of their life. So I kind of went around your question a bit, but I agree that when it comes to my fitness pal, when you think of nutrition as just numbers and hitting targets, etc., it's only going to last for a certain period of time. So a lot of the education that I provide my people is helping them create healthier habits around nutrition. So making sure they're eating food that they enjoy, making sure they're eating food that works around their lifestyle, is healthy, and is based around just things that they can kind of keep up without having to track food. So like looking at a meal and being like, all right, a third of your plate should be protein, quarter vegetables, third of carbohydrates, and just trying to make them make healthier choices. So I'm slowly moving away from you have to do this, do that, being as diligent with their nutrition and their calories and macros, to a point where what they do as a habit for the majority of time is just look for a protein source on their plate and, like I said, make those adaptations. So yeah, as I said, it's evolved with me, and I'm slowly starting to learn what's actually helpful for the type of person that I'm trying to help. So it's always trying to figure out a way for us to transition to a place where they are just being regular, healthy people.
That's, I just, as you were talking there, I remembered something that happened when we worked together. That was also the time that you decided to make a change in your own dietary choices.
Yes.
And I was just like, great. Thanks for making this so
Keep
much
you on your toes, mate.
easier for me. So just for accuracy, you decided to become, was it vegan or vegetarian?
Vegetarian at the time.
Vegetarian at the time. Have you gone further now into being vegan?
I've been vegan. Now I'm back to eating meat.
You're back to, oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Hold on.
A lot of people listening to this probably won't know that. Well, yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So what's happened there? What's gone on?
Yeah, sure. So my brother turned vegan maybe 10, 12 years ago. He was very passionate about it. And the typical vegan stereotype, look at what you're doing. Watch this video. Right. Got my mum into it, and living with my brother and my mum, them turning vegan, and then getting the little comments when you're cooking your meat and things like that. And then naturally you start watching these things, and obviously it's not nice watching the production of meat and what happens to animals.
No.
Especially when it's off of when it's really bad stuff and how they're treated. So it does put you off a bit. And so I transitioned into vegetarian, went vegan, and then over time I was vegan for 4 or 5 years, but I realized that I felt the same throughout. When I turned vegan, people say you feel better, you feel worse, or what happens. I can honestly say I felt constant the whole way through. It just depended on the quality of foods I ate, of course, but I always kept my quality fairly good and my quality fairly high. But then I started getting to a point where, in order for me to reach my targets with my goals, let's say, so eating a certain amount of protein and pursuing my fitness goals, so obviously building muscle at the time or whatever, I found myself eating loads of soy burgers and processed meat replacements and things like that. And I thought, nah, it just didn't feel right with me. Like all this man-made food that come from a factory, I was just like, this isn't helping my health. Like I don't agree with that. Like I don't think you need to be scientific to know that a soy burger mixed with loads of ingredients which you can't see, made in a factory, having 4 or 5 burgers every day in order to hit your protein target. That just didn't sit right with me. So I thought, all right, let's go back to eating meat. But I make sure that when I do eat meat, obviously when on the off time where I'm just grabbing something in a shop or something, it'll probably be just something from Sainsbury's or Tesco's or whatever. But I try to make sure that all of my meat is from the best possible sources. So I currently live in Windsor at the moment, on Maidenhead, and I sound a bit snobby here, but I shop at the Windsor Farm Shop.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, like all of it's produced from the farm, and they live a good life, as good as they can, life the animals. And obviously it still is in my mind knowing that I'm eating like meat or whatever. I'm going back and I still think about it from time to time, but I think when you weigh up the cost and the benefits, I feel better eating this form of protein or meat or whatever. So
All right. Well, that's yeah. I guess I don't know how much of a thing that all is. The whole sort of not eating meat, being vegan. At a certain point, it felt like it was quite intense, and it was a big topic. I think maybe since COVID and since a bunch of other things have happened in the world, some of these topics have kind of been like downgraded a little bit in terms of intensity, and people aren't as loud or vocal about that stuff anymore. I'm sure people still feel a way about it, but yeah, it can vary so much, people's experience. You saying that you didn't feel different, you always felt well, doesn't surprise me, right? What tends to happen when somebody becomes a vegetarian is they're forced into eating fruits and vegetables all of a sudden. They're forced into eating more whole foods. They're forced into, eating more nutrient dense foods that they didn't have in their diet before. And then naturally, as a result, they will start to feel a bit better, right? They've got a lot more fiber coming in. Their body just responds well to nutritious food as does everybody's. I'm a meat eater. In the sense, when you say meat eater, imagine like people immediately they just picture you eating steak all day every day, right?
yeah.
I actually very rarely eat red meat, but I'm just not opposed to it. But is it practical for me to do that often? Not really. I don't actually eat chicken that often now that I think about it, but often enough. I'll eat fish more than anything else, just because at this stage of my life I kind of like that. Mostly, if you're doing training, even if you're not like a fully fledged bodybuilder, everyone's like, lifting weights and doing resistance training, you need some muscle. You're going to have a slightly above average protein intake. And it's quite challenging to do that, off of tofu,
soy burgers.
So yeah, it helps if you've got a much wider variety of options to consume protein with. I know when you said it didn't sit right with me, and you didn't mean that literally at that moment in time, but speaking quite literally in terms of, when you were eating all these soy burgers and everything, did you kind of like feel like you digested them well enough? Did you have any sort of like issues? Did you have any sort of bloating? Did you have any trouble with like, going to the toilet, anything like that? Or was it just perfectly fine in the end?
It's funny you mentioned it actually, because I forgot about this, but there was a point where I was just eating all of these foods which I mentioned, and I was feeling fine, but I got to a stage where do you know of seitan?
Satan.
Satan.
Yeah, only because it's such a weird name, and I
know.
remember Googling it. Like, I made this nutrition database for my clients, like loads and loads and loads of different things. And one of the things I had to do is look up protein sources that were like vegetarian and vegan. And this thing, seitan, came up.
Yep.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And I still, to this day, don't have no clue what the hell seitan is, or just,
Okay.
it looks like a block of cheese or something.
Yeah. So seitan is basically made from wheat gluten. And per 100, because I was obviously focused on the numbers back then, and I was looking for a high protein source as a vegan. And per 100 grams of wheat gluten flour, it was 80 grams of protein. So I thought I hit the gold mine. So here I was making my own making my own seitan because it's fairly easy to make. And all I would need is like 150 on top of everything I was having to reach a decent enough protein target. So there was a point where I was just hammering this every single day because of its ease, accessibility. For like, you could buy a kilo of wheat gluten flour for a $5 on Amazon and just make it up. So when I'd meal prep myself there, but yeah, I think up until the point where I decided to change, go back to eating meat again, I was hammering down wheat gluten, and I think I have to pin. I think it was that, but that really affected my digestion. I think it's almost the timing is too close to like to counter out.
We won't go down into the route of demonizing Satan, no pun intended. It's a horrible joke. But yeah, Satan is a weird high protein, vegan option. I've never had it, and yeah, potentially if you're consuming too much of anything,
Yes.
and there's this, anybody listening to this, there's way too many variables that go into why your stomach feels a certain way when you eat something, and it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly that is. And the only sort of thing I usually tell people is not to completely write off a food or a food group, but just understand that dosage matters, much in the same way we look at lifting weights. If you go to do an exercise, you wouldn't start an exercise at 100 kilos. You might start an exercise at 10 and gradually build up as you get stronger. Your body will adapt to it, and maybe eventually you'll be able to move that, that whichever that exercise is, maybe eventually be able to move 100 kilos. Much in the same way with food, even when we're trying to get healthier, we're going from a very unhealthy diet to quite a healthy diet, slowly introducing fiber and healthy foods just to allow our bodies to get used to it, and therefore we get less of that sort of like bloating and gassy and like having weird problems with going to the toilet and all that other kind of stuff. It tends to be a smarter option, but as soon as we get like one bad experience, immediately, because it's popular to say this now, like I've got an intolerance to that. Like you might do, but you probably, you've eaten like a large amount in one go out of nowhere. Yeah, of course it was going to be an uncomfortable experience, and you can be a bit smarter about it, I think. That's not really the message that seems to be getting out there at the moment. It's easier for people to look at things as very black and white, and much in the way, I guess, vegans and meat eaters look at everything as black and white.
Yeah, of course.
And it's very rarely actually ever black and white, and we are so different. There's too many variables with each individual to know, is this the best option or is this not? And unfortunately, the burden is on you as the individual to kind of trial and error, what is the best way for you to be eating. And that can even just change with age. It can change with location. Maybe you're in Windsor one day eating the best quality foods, and next thing you end up in Leeds. Not to knock Leeds, but I don't know. I'm just making an assumption there. Man, Ryan, there's probably like a million more things I can ask you, honestly. I feel like we kind of barely scratched the surface. I haven't seen you in maybe like 6 or 7 years, and like I said to you earlier, you haven't aged a day. Guys, he looked like this when he was 23. He'll probably look like this at 43. It's just incredible genetics. It's actually been really good. I know I haven't messaged or reached out to you, but it's just been really good to watch you continue on your journey, and the effort that you put into making content, to building business, to the work that you're doing with your clients, and like, you know, I can, the stuff that you're putting out and the way your clients are responding. I'm really happy to see all of that, because it's not, I mean, I know firsthand it's not easy to do any of that work. It's not easy to work with the clients and get those outcomes. And then on top of that, it's not easy to produce that content, because it's not just for you, it's also for them. You know, these photo shoots and all this stuff. It's an amazing part of their journey that they get to go through. So not a lot of people tend to pull it off as consistently as you've been pulling it off. You know, you are always one of the nicest people that I'd worked with, and you're still one of the nicest people that I know today. You've demonstrated a lot of evolution over the years. I've seen you like grow and learn, and I do watch from a distance a little bit. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to, like, you know, get you in today as well, and chat to you, because I just felt like you've been on a journey. You've become your own sort of like coach and trainer. And I just wanted to meet that version of you, and kind of see who that person was versus baby Ryan at 23, back in Horsham. I remember coming all the way down there. But yeah, thanks a lot for coming down today. Where can people find you?
Okay, so I think first off, thank you for that. That was really nice of you to say that. Where you can find me is mainly going to be on Instagram. My handle is called Transcending Ryan. Yeah, if you want to find out more, any questions, just DM me on there.
Transcending Ryan. Cool. Ryan, hopefully we get to have you on again at some point. Guys, I'll add the links in the description, so you can find Ryan on Instagram and wherever else he is. Feel free to get in touch with him if you wanna talk about training, or like if you're looking to transform yourself. He is a genuinely good guy, who does actually care. So you wouldn't be wasting your money. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.